So the whole premise of the season is that episode 1, there's this girl named Chrissy who has an eating disorder, and she's been cursed by Vecna, right? So that means that she has a couple days to live. She's being haunted every time she gets some alone time or her mind starts to wander. She experiences these really hellish visions of a grandfather clock and like a table of food with maggots all over it, all types of horrible shit, just being tortured. And then she snaps out of it. And then after about a week, you die from it. So at the end of the episode, her and Eddie are together. She's trying to buy some hard drugs from Eddie. Eddie's a provider, apparently. And as he's about to sell to her, she gets cursed by Vecna. She gets lifted into the air. And honestly, this shit took me by surprise. This is where I realized this season was going to be very dark because I did not see this coming at all. Like Stranger Things has had season 1, I believe the Winona Ryder's love interest, the cop guy, I forget his name, but he ends up getting killed. And that shocked me in like season 1 or 2, whenever that happened. Like you see the Demogorgon or Demodog things, they like overwhelm him and just kill him. And that took me by surprise back then. Then that one girl dies in the pool, and they kind of reference that later on in this season. But I just wasn't ready for Chrissy's death at the end of episode 1, when she flew up into the air and like her eyes are rolling in the back of her head, and you see Vecna start to put his claws into her face in the other world, in the upside down. And then in the real world, as Eddie's looking at it happen, her fucking bones start snapping and moving backwards, and her jaw breaks and like it's just so. And then her eyeballs, they kind of like get pushed into the back of her head, and then she just falls lifeless to the ground in front of him. That shit was so over the top for me. And whoever did the effects on that are very well done, because the sounds of it, the sound of the human body breaking like that, and then just how merciless it was. It's a child too. You're watching an actual teenager be mutilated. Like the deaths are horrible for the children. So honestly,
I'm glad it was shocking for you, shocking for most people probably,
yes.
because I had, at this point, I had been looking at dead kids for months. In having, worked on the show. So when I saw Chrissy's like limbs get snapped, I was like, oh, that's the gag of the season. I was like, okay. I was like, everyone that dies is gonna die from getting snapped.
So do you want to real quick give some background on how you like got into? Because I know when you first got this job, you didn't even realize you were working on Stranger Things.
Funny enough, okay. So I'm a visual effects artist. By profession. Specifically, I'm a compositor, which means I'm the guy that gets rid of the green screen, replaces it with the CG dinosaur, all that stuff. So the very first shot that I worked on of this show, usually, I've been doing it for like over a decade. So by this point, every show's the same.
Damn, nigga, you old. Meanwhile, I've been accounting for over 10 years myself.
Old bitter artist. So like the first shot I saw of this, I was like, oh, hey, isn't that Dustin from Stranger Things? And I was like, oh, okay, like he's in the show. The code name for the show, which is all over the internet now, is Toriko. So I was like, oh, whatever this show Toriko is. And I was like, so Dustin's in this show, whatever it is. And then like I saw a shot with Robin, and I was like, oh, they're both in the show. That's like whatever this show's about. I was like, it's so interesting, huh? And then like it was like the shot of all of them getting out of the car, and I was like, all the kids from Stranger Things are in this show, and I was like, oh, Stranger Things.
Yeah, this is just straight up
like,
Stranger Things.
I'm working on the new season of Stranger Things.
Now, in your defense,
just didn't care. I didn't care because, like, keep in mind, for me, I was coming out of 6 months of working on a spinoff of the show Power. So like it was all bullets and muzzle flashes and gunshot wounds. So I was just happy for anything that wasn't that. So I was like, whatever this show is, cool.
That's
and I
so
was like,
funny.
In your defense, the movie It, the rework of it that came out in like 2018, that movie has some of the Stranger Things cast in it. And honestly, without comparing them too much, if you look at both of those movies, like just scenes from them, you could mistake mistake It, the movie It from 2018, for Stranger Things, because they're on bikes a lot of the time. It definitely takes place in the 80s, right? So like it has the same exact atmosphere
Yeah.
as So I could see. I was like, oh, this isn't so obvious initially, but then after you see too many characters, it's like, well,
I was just like, wow, all the kids from Stranger Things are in this show called Rico, whatever that's about.
How many? Do you know how many days that was? Was that more than one day?
It was like almost a week. It
That's
took me like a week to realize I was
That's
working
so
on
amazing. So going back, we'll talk more about the development as we get to like some of the episodes and shots you worked. Going back to the Chrissy thing, that the end of that first episode was definitely a surprise. I was watching that with Jaden, and like when that happened, I looked at Jaden, and that's my little brother, and he looked at me, and we were both
he's
like,
12, right?
yeah, he's 12. We were like, oh shit, like
Yeah, man.
it was crazy, and
I just didn't see that coming. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's not like I haven't seen kids be killed before, because the movie It, for example, kids get killed primarily, that actually exclusively in that movie. And in Stranger Things, they have, gone that far as well. Like I said, that one girl, I forget her name, I feel bad, but she died in that pool, like in season 1 or whatever.
the one that
Barbara.
everyone forgets about, Barbara. Well, everyone in
Yeah,
the show forgot about her anyway.
yeah, she died as well. So it's not like kids haven't died in Stranger Things, but it's it's really
it
how gruesome
it was a brutal
it was
kill.
brutal,
It was a
man.
brutal
It
kill.
was fucking brutal.
Yeah,
Because like
and
my,
then
my 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 first exposure to it was so first we worked on episode 5, and then we moved to episode 7, and we pretty much did like the entire like lab scene of all of the kids being slaughtered. And like I had the job of going through and like setting up all of the shots that we were doing, so I pretty much saw the entire sequence. And as I'm looking at it, and like I'm looking at like the reference that Netflix sends us and everything, and I'm just like, I was like, this is dark. I'm like,
yeah,
damn, like all these,
Yeah.
I'm like, all these kids are like gonna be dead with like snapped limbs and like gouged out eyes.
Yo.
What's gonna happen? So like, I couldn't like say anything to you guys, but I was like, it's gonna be dark. I was like,
yeah,
this
yeah,
season's gonna
yeah,
be dark.
yeah.
So at the end of episode 1, when Chrissy got like Vecna'd, I was like, oh, this happens for the entire season. I was like,
Yes.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah. Well, that's
Episode 2,
I
the
was gonna.
journalist kid gets fucking off the same exact way, and I was like, God damn, this is gonna be a thing at the end of every episode.
Same. By the end of episode 2, I thought each episode was going to end with somebody getting like destroyed. That
Yes.
isn't quite what happened, but there were still more deaths. From working on the show and watching all this stuff, the thing with working on when you watch the show or before you watch the show, did you feel as though the spoilers that you got from working on the show had any impact on your enjoyment of it, or do you feel like it almost made you excited to see certain things, or whatever?
both, because the whole beginning mystery of like Professor or Dr. Brenner being like, "Oh, what have you done? What have you done?" Like almost immediately, I was like, "No, she didn't do it. It was one." And I was like, "And one is the orderly," because like I knew that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because like one of the shots that I worked on was them kind of like doing the telekinetic thing at each other.
Yeah.
So like just from like reading the notes and stuff like that, I was able to like piece it together. It doesn't like say like in explicitly or anything, but like there's a few times they do refer to him as one, like the client does, the client being Netflix. um so I was able to kind of piece a few things together. But the surprisingly, what I didn't put together is that he was Vecna. I should have like, and probably there was a part of me that didn't want to put it together because I wanted to experience.
Yeah.
But like with all of those clues, I really should have been able to put together like, oh, one,
I
he's
actually
one and one is Vecna.
I do like the way the show, so from a perspective of somebody who's just a viewer, right? I do like the way the show hid that one was Vecna.
Oh
We
man.
don't even get introduced to the guy who is Vecna until pretty late into the show, I want to say, and late is like episode like 5, I guess. But when he's introduced, he pretends to be kind of an aide to L, and he has an ulterior motive, which you can sense as a viewer, but you can't. I don't think it's that obvious that he is Vecna. And then you get the episode 4, Dear Billy, which in this episode, there's a lot of things that happen, but one of the best things that happens is the whole Victor Creel backstory.
Yeah.
So as the cops and everyone in the town are looking for the killer of Chrissy, and the other reporter kid who died in episode 2, they're trying to figure out who killed him, and they're saying this resembles exactly what happened years ago with Victor Creel. Victor Creel's like this murderer guy.
Side note, the guy that played Victor Creel is the guy that played Freddy Krueger.
Yes, very, very cool little cameo right there, and his eyes are all clawed out and everything like that. So they have him playing a Victor Creel, and they give his backstory because this happened a while ago in the same town of Hawkins where, people ended up dead with the same exact body breaking and the eyes being gouged out or pushed into the back of their head. This really gruesome death. It resembles exactly what he did. So the girls decide they want to go visit him, and he gives the backstory of what happened. And in the backstory, so I went and watched episode 4 again just to enjoy it because it's my favorite episode of all of Stranger Things. And as I was watching it, I noticed that even the production and the direction of the episode, they do hide the little boy who ends up being one. They don't show him die the way they showed the mom. The mom, he kills the mom blatantly on screen, right? Like she lifts up into the air, all her bones break, but you don't see his eyes moving in a way that shows that he's the one doing it. And then the daughter also, you see her dead too. And then he mentions that like his son was essentially pronounced dead a week later. Like he fell into a coma, He's pronounced dead a week later. It didn't occur to me to think like, the son, he was pronounced, because they tell you blatantly that he died a week later. So I just took it for that. I didn't think anything of it.
On that note, so I thought, because in that episode, he talks about how like my son was like, he says like my son was like more in tune with the weird or whatever.
Yes, so he says he was sensitive.
I basically thought his son ended up in a will situation. I thought he wasn't dead and maybe he ended up going to the upside down. And I thought like it was like a kid trapped in the upside down. I didn't put together that the son was Vecna, obviously. And
I think it was too early, episode 4, to know all that.
But I did legit think the son was still alive and still was connected to the story. I just wasn't sure how yet. And then when it comes to like One himself, I pretty early was like, is this guy One? Like the guy that was talking to her, I was like, is this guy actually One? But once again, I didn't connect that he's Vecna or the little boy. It was like really interesting to like kind of connect certain things. Like I think this is related to this, and like be almost there but not quite there. And then when everything ends up being connected, you're like, holy shit! It's like webbed together. Like it ended up being so cool the way it ends up all falling together.
Yeah, I think it was so. The part that made it really clear to me that he was going to be One was when he blatantly told Elle about One, and she said what happened to him. And he said that's a story for another day, but it doesn't end well.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks at us. Oh, okay. So I see where it's going with that. I was like, he's definitely One. Then they showed him being tased and everything like that with no context to it. Like he was just being tased. And I was like, okay. And then like Elle kind of caught a glimpse of that, and then she runs away, and then you see the guy come out the lab. So I was like, okay, there's something going on. I still didn't think that he was going to be evil though. I thought, I don't know. He gave me weird vibes, but not like I'm going to kill the entire ward. If you free me, I'm going to kill everybody in here, including the kids. Like,
yeah.
He didn't give me that. He did not give me that.
I knew he was going to be on some shit. I didn't think he was going to be the one that killed everybody.
Me either. I did not see him killing everybody in that place.
When we got to the last episode, it's funny because we were watching the last episode, and Jaden was like, I don't think Elle did it. He was like, he was legit saying like, and then he was saying like, he was basically saying like he doesn't think, and I was like, I don't know, Jaden. I think she probably did, because like we know that she didn't have a good control over her powers when she was younger.
Right,
I was like,
and they showed her getting bullied real bad.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I think she probably did, and but at that point, I did think One was like going to be on some shit, but I did not think he was going to be the one that fucking kill everybody.
Yeah, he was like, wait here, and then he just started offing everybody. He was blatantly trying to turn Elle against like the father, right? Like he was saying he can't control you, so he tried to kill you the other day. That's why all the cameras were off. That's why those kids were out.
After she took the suppressor out of his neck, though, I was like, shit's going to get bad. I was like, I started to feel it there. I was like, oh no, this is getting bad. I was like,
I think that part to me was when things started to become a little bit more obvious as far as him being not who he said he was, right? Like the second he asked, like he said, "Oh, this thing is a tracker, and like it won't let me, leave this place or whatever." He'll know. Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the I Am Nerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.